I think to put, there's two series of 12 hours increments, right?
Yeah.
So like you don't put on North and South, you put on the first 12 hours or the second 12 hours. I mean, that's a real commitment. And I don't think today, I'm not aware of any, well, the soaps can do that. The soaps that, if you're doing Dynasty or some other soap, it doesn't really matter. In the 60 minutes, someone's going to get in trouble and they'll finish it and have a cliffhanger at the end. But the North and South was a storytelling, originally a novel, historical John Jakes novel about that big, quite well written. Also, by the way, no one, I don't know that anyone's read it, but.
Were you aware of the books before you got involved in the project? Even then,
I was not. It was one of the ones that was back filtered, meaning who is the producer?
David Wolper.
David Wolper. So David called me to have a meeting about this new miniseries, because I think North and South was the second miniseries. I think Roots was before it.
Yeah.
So we met and he explained this project being new. And I said, of course, yeah, why not? That's what I do. I write music. So when he was ready for me to what we call spot, that's a process. In other words, you don't give me the script or the book or anything like that, because it's a different media. The director has a vision. He shoots that vision. It might be inspired by the book. It might be inspired by the script even. But what gets on the screen is actually what happened. And things change. Things change on the set. They change when they're doing the script. It's like a camel. It's like, why don't we do this? Oh, we could have her do that. And the most powerful person in the room accepts it or stops it. Oh, I think that she should run away with a big Saint Bernard dog. No, that's silly. Yeah, but I want it. So all those decisions are made before they begin shooting. And even during the shoot, they might decide on something. Anyway, the reason why a film composer would look at the film only would be because this is what he's going to work with. He could get inspiration on some level. What his themes could be, what is this about? It could, churn around in your head. You could sit at the piano, you could fool around with different things. You can't do anything in concrete to attach it to a movie till they have a movie. That's what we call spotting. You sit with the producer and the director and you spot, where will the music begin? Where will the music end? And you agree. So when I spotted North and South with David Wolper, it took days. I didn't realize that this was not a movie. This was going to be a series of movies. And we sat there for days and we figured out there was over 3 hours of original music. Now there's two kinds of music in a movie. There's source music. The radio's, well, this is the period piece. There's no radio. The band is playing over there. Anything that's happening at the source, radio, TV, violinist, guitar player, band walking across, whatever, that's source music. So the North and South had miles of source music. Festas, little parties where dances were held, right? In the private plantations, the military bands that we used in certain situations. All that is called source music. So there was hours of that that had to be prepared. Then there's the original music. That's the dramatic music, where you decide we should play music here. And it's just hours upon hours. So after doing this with David Wolper and the director, the three of us, we sat in this room for days. I said, well, by the way, when does this go on the air? He says in 2 weeks. I said, really? So he says, well, we're going to be dubbing. Now, there will be audio on a film. There'll be effects. The door slam is not the door slam because there was a microphone there. The gunshot, you see the puff of smoke, won't necessarily have a gunshot there live when they did it. And when you go and you punch them in the mouth, and it sounds like you've just cracked open, like, well, there's no sound until you put the sound in. So someone has to make that sound for every moment in the movie. Someone has to make the music for every moment where there's music. And then the dialogue, that's go get him. And the helicopter's overhead getting the shot, and you can't actually hear him say, go get him. It has to be dubbed. It has to be looped. It has to be done again. So the film might be prepared, but these three elements have to be prepared separately after the film is done, only after the film is done, because that's what we're working with. And it has to be timed to the film. When the sync is off, they say, go get them. And then you see, well, all that synchronization happens prior to the mixing, the dubbing. So there's 12 hours of North and South. It goes on in 2 weeks. And you have to dub each one of these hour films, or 2 hours, an hour and a half, whatever it was. They have to dub them, they have to mix them, they have to sit there. So that was going to be taking place on 2 different stages. Normally on a movie, go reel by reel, foot by foot, until everyone's happy with that sound. And a reel could be 10 minutes of music, 10 minutes, period, in time. So you run a reel. The effects guy doesn't like this. He has to adjust this. The dialogue is out of sync. This doesn't sound right. The music guy hates not being heard. He's yelling at the other guy. Why does the door slam have to sound like an atom bomb? I can't hear the music when you do that. And there's a mixer that has to do that. And a director who's yelling at him too. And the producers, every footage putting their 4 cents in. So the audio can get on the 1 track, 2 tracks, or whatever it is. So this mixing is being done on 2 separate stages with 2 separate crews. So this is the spot. And David says, all right, there's the hour's worth of music, and we go on 2 weeks, fine. He says, but I want it to be like Gone with the Wind. Now, Gone with the Wind is an American reference to a movie. I think it was done in 1939. Could be.
You're right. Yeah.
Could be. Max Steiner was the composer of the music, right? I mean, there's 1,000 people connected with Gone with the Wind. But I only care about Max Steiner because when David Wolper said, I want it to be like Gone with the Wind, he's talking about the theme of Gone with the Wind that Max Steiner wrote for this 3-hour, whatever that Gone with the Wind was. And it was glorious. It was a big, sweeping theme that played throughout Gone with the Wind. So that's the first order of business for me, to get something that he would, that would fall into that category. I mean, I should like it too, but he's telling me what he wants. He's hiring me. I want this. It's got to sound like Gone with the Wind. And I said, okay. So I go home and write something like I did, hoping that it was Gone with the Wind for him. And by the way, after 2 weeks of writing, we began recording. Now, what that meant was, I can't stop my writing because you can't do hours worth of music in just every day, just sitting here. It takes time to do that. So we would record at night from 7 to 11, 7 to midnight. I would write all day, then go into the studio to record. After 2 weeks of writing, so I did get a 2 week. No, I got a lot less of time. It was on the air in 2 weeks, so I was writing and recording as soon as I had material, and that went on until the process ended. I wrote, and recorded every night. Director, producer, big orchestra, because that's the next comment to a producer. Like when he says, I want Gone with the Wind, that means two things. Musically, I know what that means because I write music, the kind of music that he was referencing. But how do you make that sound? It takes an orchestra. What kind of an orchestra? A huge orchestra, because you can't fake. You can't fake big. Now you can say, well, but my budget is teeny, but I want a big orchestra. Well, you can't have that because you have to pay many musicians to sit there to get this big sound. There's no other way to do it. So that was the next thing I said to him after he wanted Gone with the Wind. I said, it's going to cost a lot of money, because I can't get that sound with 20 or 30 musicians. 20 or 30 musicians does not sound like Gone with the Wind. Now, the audience is not going to know the reasons why, and it doesn't matter. But the producer, when he asks for 30 pounds and I give him 10 pounds, he's going to know this doesn't work. So he says, no, you have to do what you have to do. And I did. So we filled up the studio. The musicians, of course, never know what they're working on. And remember, before these things come out, they show up to play music. It goes on the screen, and they kept saying, well, Bill, what is this about? So it's so complicated in terms of what it could be. It could be War and Peace, and you're telling them, well, Dostoevsky is talking about this family that's interacting with. That's it. So I made up this horrible story like it was an Italian opera. And I changed all the characters' names. This is in the studio, just because we're going to be there every night. What's happening now, Bill? And I was telling him something funny was happening, because none of it would make sense. You come in the middle of a soap opera and you're trying to tell someone who's never seen it before. Well, she's sleeping with him. He doesn't know that he killed her brother over, so it's ridiculous to try to tell the truth. So we would be laughing for these weeks of recording and drinking wine. We had cheese and wine, and they didn't know really what was on the screen, because they knew it was in a period, and you knew it was the American Civil War, but it was fun. It was a lot of experience. It was the kind of writing which was stream of consciousness. In other words, if you write, and if you remember things called erasers, and you would be writing something, well, no, let me change that. You would erase, I found a better word for that. Or you could do it on your computer. You could say, no, none of that happened. It was, oh, this is good. I like this. Oh, it could be better, but no, this is it. This is it. Stream of consciousness. as fast as I could write it, we recorded it at night.
So when you're told we want Gone with the Wind,
Yeah.
does that excite you, or are you thinking, oh geez, I don't know how I'm going to do this?
Oh, I know exactly how to do that. Come on now. If you hire the electrician, you bring him in, he says, well, this light is broken. You go, oh, what am I going to do? It's a light. No, I know exactly. But everyone that does what I do would know exactly what he meant. It's a big melody, big orchestra, wide intervals in the melody that makes you have a spacious feeling. It's the difference between epic poetry and something that is, E.E. Cummings, something a little tiny bit. No, this is sweeping, this is Homeric. And in music, so every music guy would say, like if I said Star Wars, you go, oh, because you can hear the orchestra, that kind of big. Well, Gone with the Wind is that kind of big.
And as well, obviously, you said you had like just a 2-week turnaround, which seems like a really short space of time. But
Seems like a short space of time, yeah.
Is that normal though, for like these projects, or is that?
It is in television, yes.
Okay.
Pretty much in television. I think sometimes going on the air can be only sometimes, not all the times, but to say you have to write in 3 or 5 days on a weekly show would be the norm. You have 3 or 5 days. So this is like an hour and a half. They might have been 90 minutes. I don't know what they were, but they weren't an hour, and it was 12 hours. The lead time in television is so different than the movies because of scheduling. It's budget. Everything is, it's totally understandable. In other words, from the time that you're given the script and they break it down, and it should take so many days to shoot, so many days for this pre-production, production, and post-production. So when you get to post, everyone comes off the payroll from pre-production, like the actors, the people on the set, but all these post-production people, sound effects, dubbing, music, the editing staff, they're waiting for you. The editing staff has finished the movie. Now what? When I say it's finished, that means the effects guy can come in and take a reel, begin his timing, because he can't begin until you finish. So what do? Well, you're waiting for us to finish. Now, how long do you take to finish? Well, for example, in the golden days of Hollywood, let's say, 10-week contracts to do a movie. Post-production, composer. I'm not talking about if they shot a movie in so many days. I don't know about that. But a 10-week contract was the norm. Now that's 3 months to write the music. That rarely happens now. You can see signs. I can remember seeing signs opens in 4 weeks or something like that. You go, I still haven't got it from them yet. Why? Because the theaters are booked already. And let's say it's going to open what they call wide. Let's say it's a 2-hour movie. Well, they have to print that, don't they? Don't they need 2,000 prints to open in 2,000 theaters? How do they do that? How do they print the negatives? Well, it takes time. So they back up from the time you need to do that. It has to come out, it has to be processed. Everything has to be processed. And they want it as fast from you as possible. So everything scooshes, and television is like unbelievably brutal. Yeah, brutal.
And because North and South is so long and hours upon hours of footage and music, does that kind of give you scope to play around? compared to just say like a normal 90-minute or 2-hour movie?
No, there's no play around. You know what you're doing, and you hope that your first thought was good enough. This is where it's different, from an artist or commercial artist. You have an idea to write a story, and you're a writer, and you work on it. You get up, and then tomorrow you got a headache. You don't work on it. And then you're not really happy with this what you're doing. Let me do it again. There's something wrong about it. Let me leave it for a while and come back to it. Maybe I'll get a different. Now, if I hire you and say, I want this article by Thursday, I'm not talking to you about, do you have a headache? Do you not like it? I says, can you bring it here by Thursday? Because it goes in print on Thursday. So when you say, this is the best I can do between now and then, I wasn't feeling good. I didn't like what I did, but I finished the job. So you have to have a level of proficiency. You have to be good enough to be better than Sally Ann and Jimmy Boy, who writes every once in a while and really writes well, but not on demand. I say, no, I want an article by tonight. I want 500 words. What? No, I want 800 words by tonight. Now, some people can do it, some people can't. But you don't get to compare. You don't say, well, look, Tale of Two Cities is, no. And he did it for an article too, by the way. There are people that do different work than commercial artists, We get it there on time and it's pretty good. It's not to be confused with. I heard 2 nights ago, I went to hear Tannhauser of Wagner. I don't care whether he's sick, he had a deadline, it doesn't matter. This was Wagner. This is a work of art. He's a genius, fine. Other people, they do it and they do it pretty good. And you go, I like that. Difference between talent and genius, So if you're going to do something on demand, you at least got to be talented and pretty good to get it done on time. Because you might get it done on time and they might not like it. It won't get in. It won't go. You have 800 words. If they don't like it, gone. The music, they don't like it. They'll hire someone else and give him less time.
One of the many great things about the series is the music. It's like it's its own character, whether it's the main theme with the titles. It's almost like a comfort blanket, and it puts bums on seats, and you're in it, and you're there, and you're off. And you gave individual characters like their own themes, and if there's a battle, and you get the music for the battle. And is that something that you were told to do, like in the meeting, or is that again?
No. This is historic. In other words, I mentioned Wagner. It's called a Leitmotif. Every time she walks on the stage, the little flute plays this. Every time. This is going to go back to. I'll make the reference to Going with the Wind. So Max Steiner is kind of known as the beginning film composer. There were others, but he was like sometimes described as the father of all this. So he's from Austria, Hungary, trained in, his godfather was Richard Strauss. This is like a real composer. So he made the comment way back then about the leitmotif of Wagner, who began, she comes on, she's always a bassoon, and it's these 4 notes. He's over here, Siegfried has a theme, it sounds like this, it's played by the horn. So in the middle of everything, if you were literate, if one was literate enough in the overture, he would say, oh, that's Siegfried's theme. Now you got to be, This is like you were listening to pop music today, and you would recognize everything that's in the pop music because you would know, because you're just full of that. One is, right? You could tell the difference between this rapper and that rapper, and they all have the different, okay. So Wagner really drove home this leitmotif, and it makes you comfortable. You hear the little horn happening, and Siegfried is not on the stage. You're thinking about Siegfried because that's his thing. Is he coming? She's thinking about him. So in movie making, it's also the same thing. The woman is just looking at like this, and she's not giving you any expression at all. But the music is telling you you should be crying now because she's thinking about the baby that just died two reels ago. And that's the same way with the leitmotif in North and South. Everything had a planned. Now, does it work psychologically? We think it does. Not on an intellectual level, but that's his thing. That's her, whatever. And when there's a low thing, and there's the cello because that's him, and this is the flute, this is her, and they're distant part. You hear it a little bit, you hear it a little bit. Then they're doing together. Oh my goodness! So it's not literal, but music, of course, is not literal. So we have all these things that have been done historically. Nobody's breaking new ground here. If you're a student of the game, then you know that. You say, oh, no, this thing goes on for hours. If I could sit here and write and like read the John Jakes book before, you could have all your themes sculled out. You say, oh, this sounds like Rhett Butler, and this sounds like whatever those people are. And then you make these little bitty, what called leitmotifs, these little musical figures, 4 notes, maybe it's a measure, maybe it's 2 measures. It's whatever you think gives the feeling of characters. Okay, now let's talk about some of the emotions. Oh, how do I know who's getting mad? Well, every time people get mad, let's do this. When she's about to cry, when anybody's going to cry, why don't we just do this? Now that's between me and my music. You don't have to know that. But collectively, over the course of a movie, or in this case, 24 hours of movies, I'm always going to do this. Now, it's easier for me to write too, by the way. Some of these little problems of what am I going to do in this scene? Well, let's begin. She's in this theme. Where's her theme? Oh, here it is. That's her. Why? I made that decision when I read the book. That's her theme. I'm answering problem solving, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So all of these things are gathered before you even begin to write the movie.
Now, when North and South came out, you'd already won an Oscar by this point, but I believe it was your first Emmy nomination, so it must have been nice to have been recognized for that when North and South was such a big deal.
Always nice when someone knows your name. Yes, it's always nice, yeah. You have no control over that, so you just say thank you. Yeah.
Of course. To segue slightly, the new James Bond film has just been released in cinemas after loads and loads of delays. Now, of course, you worked on For Your Eyes Only, which had its 30th anniversary this year. What are your memories of doing the soundtrack and just working on a Bond film generally?
Well, a Bond film is particular. It was particular even when I did it that long ago, because it had established itself as, well, let's say a brand, at least. It's a brand. And it was a brand then. And for some reason, John Barry couldn't do it, and For Your Eyes Only, and he recommended me. Let's begin with, that's a rare thing. Not that we all want each other's jobs, which we do. I mean, you want a good movie, right? If you're all looking for movies to do it, and that's his account. I mean, that's John Barry has created the James Bond musical language, okay? So he recommended me, which was like wonderful. Then that puts you in touch with Cubby Broccoli and his family. And of course, they are wonderful. Bill, I'd like you to do it in England. I said, well, I have a family and I'd rather not leave my family for 3 months. She says, oh no, I'd like you to take your family. Okay, I can do that. I have no objections, but I really don't want to leave I have 2 daughters and a wife, right? Oh, come along. Okay, so you were treated like family there. And there was never any, of course, nervousness. I'll just say anxiety. If there was anxiety, I didn't know it. It was when you go into a country club, they say, we require a shirt with a collar. They don't talk about it. They said, no, this is what we do here. This is the menu. We don't serve hot dogs. So the Bond people say, this is what we do. And you find everything acceptable. Gentlemen, intelligence. This is how we do it. And then at one point, Covey says, I think when he's going through the orchards of olive trees in this silly little Renault or whatever it was, I think we should play it like a country and Western. So I said, well, I don't. And then the director says, well, I don't think so. He says, and Covey says, I'd like to hear that, Bill. He says, yes, sir. Without a doubt. So I wrote a cue for him. That was the country and Western going through it made no sense at all. It was funny. It was comic because it was, banjos and guitars. It might have been the French country, so whatever it was. And now that was expensive. I had to do it. I got to get orchestrated, had to be copied, had to be played, had to be recorded, and then thrown out. And do it now the right way. But there was no anxiety. There was no, I wonder if this will work or not. No, I want to hear that. Yes, sir. So the whole project was wonderful. I was obstinate about having a Shirley Bassey type singer. That people on the side was telling me to meet with
Sheena Easton.
Who?
Sheena Easton?
Sheena. Okay, yeah. Sheena Easton. And I go, no. I want Donna Summer to sing it. And I want Barbara Streisand to write the lyric. Okay. So Barbara Streisand is doing Yenta, so she couldn't see what. Told me she'd like to do it, but she's really busy. Can't have Donna Summer. In the end, meet with Sheena. Okay, I'll meet with you. Fantastic voice, of course. Fantastic voice. I wanted a hit. If you're a film composer and you do a score, it's a big deal. This is supposedly, you're a film composer and you get a film to do, you're working. Otherwise, you're not working. But if you get to do a project that has a song connected with it, and you get a song that keep, because you could write a song and they not like it, it's gone. The same with the score. They don't like the score, it's gone. But this is an opportunity. So you'd be really stupid to not see this opportunity. Oh my God, a Bond song, maybe. So I wanted to cover my bet. I wanted the biggest singer, I want the biggest shot at having a hit, right? And then Sheena did have a hit at the time, but it was a little middle of the road, cutesy. Might have been a great song, but it wasn't. I didn't think it was it didn't display her abilities in a Shirley Bassey kind of way, which is what I wanted. But when we sat together, we sat at the piano, and she had these great low and these great highs. So then now I could write a song specifically for her using these big lows and these big highs. And she was great, of course. It's great for me anyway. And she was the only singer, I think, that's been in the main title.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And that who is the great creator of the main titles?
Maurice Binder, is it?
Maurice.
Yeah.
Maurice Binder. I need you. I can't remember these things. So Maurice was a little guy. Brilliant, brilliant. When he saw Sheena, little girl, fell in love. No, I know he didn't fall in love, but he just saw something in her and her face, the look, whatever. He says, Bill, do you think that she would want to be in the, I said, are you kidding? She would kill. But I don't know that, but so he approached Sheena and her people to be in the main title. Yeah, it was a big deal. Anyway, it was a great experience. A great experience, and I got to do whatever I wanted, in addition to whatever Cubby wanted, and only once or twice, apologetically, he said to me, you know, when James goes into action, we'd like to use his theme. I hope you don't mind. Now, as a fan of the Bond brand project or whatever, I said, I wouldn't think of doing anything but the James Bond themes when it's time for James to go into action. So it was a wonderful experience.